Sony's long-awaited adaptation of the beloved video game series Uncharted has finally hit the big screen after multiple delays, just like every other film that's coming out this year, essentially. And if you've probably heard, this movie sucks. I'm just going to cut to the chase right off the bat. This movie sucks. There's quite little redeeming in this movie. I've never played the Uncharted games myself, but I know people that do, and I know that this is one of the most highly acclaimed video game series of all time. And this movie is adapting pretty much what many would consider the best of the games, which is the fourth game, with hints of 3 thrown in there, but I'll get to that in a second. So, I saw early signs of trouble from the very first trailer. If you don't remember, back when the first trailer came out, everybody was making fun of it. It was like the Cats trailer. It came out, everybody was pissed, everybody was making fun of it. And it turns out that was for a good reason. This movie is pretty bad. Is it the worst video game movie of all time? Hell no. Have you seen other video game movies? I take this over House of the Dead or Alone in the Dark or Mortal Kombat Annihilation any day. Because the funny thing about this film is, while I was watching it, I did see a review that's like, you won't hate yourself while watching it. That's kind of how I thought. I kind of remember watching this and like, I don't hate that I'm watching this, but afterwards I walked out the less and less sense it made. And it's kind of like, this movie is exactly like Jungle Cruise from last year. The first half, my lizard brain was kind of like, you know what, this isn't that bad. It could be worse, or it could be better, but this isn't awful. But around the 50-minute mark, 55, something like that, around halfway through the film, it took a complete detour and just dropped out of the sky like, well, a plane. And yeah, there's the same thing with like Status Update, if anybody saw that movie. First half, wasn't that bad. Second half, pfft. But even still, looking back on the first half of this movie, it still wasn't good. Is there anything redeeming in this film? Yes and no. The acting across the board isn't terrible. There's actually some really good performances out of here, but everybody's miscast. Tom Holland, not a good choice for Nathan Drake. Would have been a great young Nathan Drake, but they didn't go that route and tried to cast him as older Nathan Drake, and it didn't quite work. Mark Wahlberg, fantastic actor, fantastic performance, wrong performance. He was originally cast as Nathan Drake around 10 years ago, if you don't know, but the movie suffered in development hell, and he was eventually given the role of Sully, and Drake was given to Tom Holland. I think Wahlberg should have stayed as Nathan Drake. I still don't think he was the best choice, Nathan Fillion, hello, but he still would have been better than Holland. It's like, not that I'm dissing Holland's performance. Like I said, he does well. His voice is too high-pitched, and from what I've heard, the characterization of these characters, even I know as someone who didn't play the games, I know it's off. So, Chloe is a complete waste of space. Antonio Banderas is a fantastic, well, he's not a fantastic villain, he's a fantastic presence to have as a villain. The villain himself is really bland and not very interesting. At least we understand his motivations, though. Unlike the other villain of the film, whose name I can't be bothered to remember, and I don't really care, who essentially takes over as the main villain in the second half of the film, and that creates one of the biggest problems. One, you wasted Antonio Banderas, you fuckbags, and two, this character has no personality. I'm not sure what her motivation is. If she said it, it was in a brief line somewhere, and she's not intimidating in the slightest. The only other thing I've seen her in is Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and that show wasn't good. And all the other... Sam Drake is barely in the movie, does absolutely nothing, is just Nathan's drive to do something. He's a plot device. He's not a character in this movie, he's a plot device. And the action should be the main staple of this film, as it is for the games. The action in this movie is pretty bad. I'll give the one auction house fight that is featured heavily in the trailer, a little too much actually, is actually a decent fight. The banter was actually pretty funny, or the one-liners were pretty funny, especially the Scottish dude, he was hilarious. And the fight choreography and the stunt work was amazing. Actually, overall, the stunt work is fantastic. The stunt coordinators, give Oscars for stunts, for God's sake. I mean, seriously, and this one, the stunt coordinators worked their ass off. The choreography is sloppy in most of the fights. The editing is atrocious. If any of you saw my Mulan review from back in 2020, I pointed out that I hated that the camera kept zipping from shot to shot to shot so quickly. You didn't let anything sink in, and it was a disorienting mess. That was the main problem with the final sword fight in this film. I couldn't see what was happening because it was jumping from shot to shot to shot. The stunts were great, but they are a little too coordinated. Every time somebody trips and falls, they somehow do a perfect, roll or backflip or something and perfectly land on their feet. This isn't Uncharted, this is Spider-Man at this point. And, of course, everybody knows about the infamous plane scene in this that everybody made fun of in the trailer because it looked so fake. The CGI puppet of Tom Holland, just no. Just absolutely not. And the scene as a whole was just pretty bad. Also, I can't remember the term for it. I'll put it down here in text. But there's a term for when a movie starts at the end of the movie. This movie starts starts around the hour 15 mark or something like that. It starts during the plane scene, believe it or not. And then everything else is just catching you up to that point. Video games do this all the time, and they can get away with it because it's giving you a little taste of what's to come while you're playing through the game. With a movie, it's just a fucking spoiler by that point. I hate when movies do this, and this one was no exception. The special effects in this film are unforgivably bad. They are laughable. The CGI everywhere. Motherfucking sirens. The CGI is atrocious. The CGI plane, whenever, during that scene, all of the CGI, whenever the humans turn into CGI creations, it is very noticeable. It's 2003 Daredevil level bad, or 2002 Spider-Man level bad, where the CGI is just way too noticeable. And this movie cost $120 million to make. I don't see that money anywhere on the screen. I'm guessing most of that went to Holland, Wahlberg, and Banderas, because none of it's showing on screen, or to the stunt coordinators, because none of that's showing with the visual effects. This is directed by the same guy who did Venom. Enough said. I don't mind Venom. I think it's okay, but it is aptly noticeable that this is the same director. The music is not stellar. It's pretty forgettable. It's my roommate, who I saw it with my roommate, he got pissed off when they played the main theme when he first gets that stupid holster that he wears. He gets that an hour and a half into the movie, during the final fight, and then they played the main theme for about 8 seconds, and then he got pissed off about it. I even remember turning him during the first credit scene when it was playing some really shitty song in the background. I turned to him and I told him, watch in the actual credits, it's going to play the main theme. And I was right. I should have bet money on it. I really should have. I would have won.
Can I say a couple things?
Yeah.
If I can say a couple things. Hi, Trent here. This takes everything that the game's built up and created for your whole 18-something years of childhood and destroy it. This whole movie is gilded. It looks pretty, but it's ultimately not. It destroys the character, Nathan Drake, destroys Sully, destroys Chloe, destroys everything that the game series created as a masterpiece, and takes a big shit all over it. Thank you.
Funny thing is, he was standing in the spot where the poster is going to be, so only half his face is probably going to be showing in the final cut. So I found that pretty funny. So yeah, the music was not stellar. It was pretty forgettable. And this movie creates the biggest cardinal sin in any film. It rips off and references much better movies than its own crappy one. The unspoken rule of cinema: never refer to a better movie during your own crappy one. This one makes direct references to Indiana Jones and Pirates of the Caribbean, but it also rips off Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean, National Treasure. Throw Jungle Cruise in there for extra credit, I guess, because it's the same fucking movie. And if you saw my Jungle Cruise review, you know I didn't really like that movie that much. And again, it's the same thing. First half of that movie was actually legitimately good. Then the second half was shit. But this one was crap from start to finish. But the first half, I was kind of with it a bit. Especially during the auction house scene, my brain kind of turned off, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. And that's exactly what the movie wants to think. Hey, this looks cool, but that's it. There's no character here. There's nothing from the games being represented except for a few horribly done set pieces. The comedic writing is pretty hit or miss. Every once in a while, it got a good laugh out of me, but other times I was just sitting there rolling my eyes. Holland and Wahlberg, bless their hearts, they tried, but they couldn't make this movie work. I've been told, people have said, like, what can you do to possibly improve a bad script? Maybe let the actors' performances shine a bit. Maybe give it a good score. Maybe distract it with some good action. All those answers are wrong. The only answer is you can't fix a bad script. A bad script is a bad movie. And this movie has a horrible script with plot holes on many, too many plot points to count, some really stupid twists and double crosses thrown in there, because I guess we might as well throw James Bond into the ripoff count. What's that make, 6 now? So, I got nothing else to say. Don't waste your money on this one. Don't bother seeing it in theaters. When you see it on Redbox, don't rent it. It comes on cable, don't watch it. Change the channel. If you see it on a streaming service, go to the other streaming service. It's not worth it. Don't even look at it. Don't acknowledge its existence. Don't make the studio think they have a hit, and don't allow them to make a sequel. We don't need a sequel to this Uncharted mess. That's all I got for Uncharted. I'm giving this a D. Honestly, that's a bit generous, but whatever. Thank you all so much for watching, and give me your thoughts down below. What did you think of Uncharted? Did you think it was one of the better video game adaptations? Not a high bar to clear, but that's a bar low enough to trip over. But did you think it was worse than all the other video game movies? I don't think anybody's going to think that. Nobody's going to tell me that. I don't think anybody's going to tell me this is worse than Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But yeah, do you like this movie? Did you hate it? It's getting pretty mixed reviews from critics and audiences alike. And yeah, that seems fair. That seems right. So that's all I got, and I got some other February reviews to do. So I'll see you then.